Right, here we are. It is the 19th of June, 2020, and this is going to be, I believe, episode 6 of the BJJ Sparcast. We're really lucky today to be joined by a new person to me, somebody I've not had the pleasure of sparring with before, but who's well known to two good close friends of mine. I'd like to welcome Duncan to the BJJ Sparcast. In addition, one of my close friends and teammates, Mike, who is a purple belt at Alexandra Park BJJ, somebody that I've personally watched win gold, silver, bronze medals in competitions, and had the distinction to be able to participate in him winning those medals. So Duncan and Mike, welcome to the Sparcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Great to be here.
And in the interest of making sure that we are clear to everybody who we are, my name's Jeffrey, Canadian brown belt living here in London. Got my brown belt quite a number of years ago from Eduardo Telles. And I run the BJJ Sparcast together with my good friend and colleague, Ryan. Ryan is my teammate at Alexandra Park. So I'm going to take a moment here and ask each one of you, starting with counterclockwise with Mike in the top left-hand corner. Can you just take a moment, talk about yourself, introduce yourself, and discuss your motivation for doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Sure. First of all, quite pleasure to be here, and thanks for inviting me. So purple belt under Gavin Lewis and you guys at Alexandra Park. Been doing BJJ for about coming up to 8 years now. Yeah, about 7.5. Yeah. So started off doing judo at first under Stuart at Alexandra Park Judo Club, and hurt my back. Had 2 slip discs, which gave me like 6 months of sheer hell in terms of sciatica, and then had to give up judo because of that. Because of the sort of high impact and always being thrown and being smashed onto the floor and so on. And I think that's what caused the sort of double slip discs. So yeah, went off the sporting radar for a good few years actually, and then at that time I spoke to Stuart, and Stuart then told me Gavin was starting up a BJJ club, and this was back in 2013. So yeah, and then joined and sort of never looked back, and just started really enjoying the journey. Really helped me with my back, managing my back, because of all the sort of core strength element, and yeah, and just haven't looked back since really. So yeah, that's me.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mike. All right, Ryan.
Okay. I have been training for over 4 years under Jeff and my other teachers at Alexandra Park, Fahed and Gavin. I am obsessed, like many jiu-jitsu practitioners. And yeah, I just want to be in the game as much as possible. I love doing these podcasts and talking about it, thinking about it, getting together with friends, and rolling.
All right, Duncan, how about you?
Yes, so obviously, my name's Duncan. Thanks for having me on. My first podcast. I've been involved in martial arts for a long time. I started probably in my early sort of teens. I started in karate. I got a third dan in Goju-Ryu. And then from that, I was doing a lot of striking, but I wanted to learn about throws and groundwork. So I moved over to judo and started that probably 18, 19 years old. So spent about 20 years in judo. Got my first stand. But again, I found that I had the stand-up game, I had the throw game, but I just felt that I was missing that fundamental element of the groundwork. Even the judo, it didn't feel like I was strong on the ground. I felt I was weak on the ground. So that's when I went and found Mill Hill, probably about 8 years ago. So on and off, yeah, about 8 years. Purple belt now at Mill Hill. And yeah, that's pretty much my addiction now is BJJ.
Terrific. And just to say, they've got a terrific team there at Mill Hill, BJJ, just, real high-level competitors, great teachers, and we're quite lucky to be located near Mill Hill, and so we have a lot of crossover with them, and we see them quite a lot. So thanks, guys, for coming on the Sparcast. Also, I'd like to say it's perhaps not a coincidence that all four of us are, I'm going to try and put this in as polite a way as possible, over a certain age. And I'd like to, the one great thing about BJJ is that it permits guys like us who have the competitive spirit, but, can't handle the training regime of, say, freestyle wrestling or judo, which is really high impact. All four of us have other things that we like to do with our lives that were we to do these really high impact sports would probably restrict, having a family, being able to do your job properly if you're walking around with serious injuries all the time. So
I started at age 41.
Fantastic. Wow. Fantastic. So, anybody watching this who thinks I'd like to do BJJ, but I am A, not fit enough, B, too old, C, I've had injuries, D, I'm not coordinated. Just know I started at 30. I mean, as both Duncan and Mike have said, that you guys both started, probably well into your 30s. It is possible. It is absolutely possible. It is a lot less impact than you're thinking. Still difficult, but great. So we are really lucky here. We have a recording of a sparring session between Mike and Duncan that took place. Well, this must have been shortly before the lockdown, so it's probably March anyway, wasn't it?
Yeah, it sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like the first week of March, something like that.
Yeah.
It was during Mike Hawkins' sessions, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah, because I remember even then talk of all, how much sort of long we'll be training, and was this going to stop? And it must have been early March.
And if I recall correctly, this is at Resistance BJJ.
That's right.
Do you guys have the address for this to hand? Do you know where it is?
High Barnet, that's all I know.
No problem if you don't. I'll put it in the description.
Yeah. No, it was really good because so Mike Hawkins. So for Ryan and Jeff, if you don't know who Mike is black belt at Mill Hill. So Duncan knows him very well, and they train together. And then he started teaching at Resistance, right, Duncan?
Right. Yeah.
And then I assume he've always had this kind of invitation only kind of training session for, your sort of purple, brown, black belts. And I was really lucky to have been invited or allowed to go, should I say. And that's how I met, Duncan. And I thought, oh, purple belt, okay, I'm gonna roll with him. And
funny how, I mean, it was sort of funny how it started. It was probably a closed group of about 5 or 6, mixture of purple, brown, black. And then it really started to grow. And I remember one day I turned out and there must have been 8 or 9 black belts there. It was like, oh, this is going to be a tough morning. But it grew, it sort of grew to about a consistent 12. So we could sort of mix it up and have sort of 3 groups of 3 or 4 groups of 3, and it actually worked quite nicely.
Yeah, very, very high level. As you can imagine, you got the Mill Hill brown belts, black belts, purple belts, and which I found really useful to really develop my game, let alone, you know, rolling with other people outside of your club. But to roll with these people, it's, yeah, really is very, very beneficial. And Mike Hawkins, very, very good teacher, very solid game. And so, yeah, so I'm just waiting for that to reopen, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it'd be a good one. I mean, it was even just to be able to turn up, and, you know, I think that was really the first time that I'd met you, and then we're literally rolling for an hour. You know, someone for the first time, and you might have a roll with each other, and you choose someone else. But it was like, right, you know, you're in a 3, and that was it for the next hour. So you just had to work each other's game out in that hour, which, you know, was really good.
Yeah.
And there's something really nice about having the pace of an hour's roll. You know, you're not going hell for leather. You are, like you were saying, Duncan, earlier, you know, you're having to pick and choose your techniques. You have to be a bit creative. And it actually permits us, in the context of this Sparcast, quite a lot of leeway in order to pick out techniques, because there isn't, you know, the pace is quite low. Rather, it's you know, it's done in a way that is easy to analyze. Shall we get started?
Yeah.
Let's do it. I'll screen share. Can you see that?
Oh yeah, and I must tell people that I do wear a Princess Leia ear guard when I'm rolling. So yeah, just to protect my my ears. Last thing I want is cauliflower ears, man.
And also, that is not a regulation gi. Mike, come on, man.
I wanted to look like a samurai, so I like the green.
Love it.
Let's
Ready?
go.
Let's do it.
So yeah, so those who rolled with me and so on, they know I'm pretty much a guard player, really, and you know, I like starting on the back and then just work out, you know, what my opponents do and what their game is, and then I just realised, you know, having rolled with Duncan a couple of times, you know, I just really love his half guard game, and his also his utilization of grips as well. So, which I found very, very difficult when I was rolling with Duncan. So, yeah.
And his base there was just fantastic. If you rewind it a little bit,
Sure.
there's something if you're ever watching somebody, you want to know if they have a decent amount of experience, or, you know, if you want to pick out somebody who's got skill, you'll know it if they do this thing. You see how he's sticking his butt out. Yeah. Go back, even back a little bit more. You see he's kind of arched his lower back when he's on his feet, and he's sticking that butt out really far out. And it means his base is really hard to manipulate. It's also somebody who's quite, you can tell, has got quite strong thighs, you know?
Now, just then, Duncan, did you just sit down, or did he manage to push you down?
So that, I mean, that it's quite good seeing that again, because I was, to be honest, I was looking to pass Michael, but I soon realised that he had some really strong grips, and he was playing with the Lasso guards. He was also trying to get the De La Riva in, and I just thought, you know, these are long rounds. You know, we're here for an hour, so I thought I'm going to see if I can, you know, I'm going to see if I can draw him into my half guard. So it was almost like not sort of giving up. I thought, right, I'm going to have a change of tactic here. So I just sat back, you know, at that point, because I just felt like I was struggling to pass. He had good grips. Like you say, yeah, you know, I was having really to use my base there, really to, you know, sort of keep my posture. One thing I will say is that maybe if you'd gone for a little tripod sweep, the fact that I was sort of sitting back like that, you know, you might have swept me back quite easly. That's something that I get, you know, that I do get caught with. But yeah, so I've just sat back down, and then Michael comes back up into my guard.
But then Duncan, you, I mean, obviously, you wouldn't do that in a comp, though, would you? You would have.
No, not at all. No, which is why I like these. Which is why I'm not a massive fan of competition, to be honest, because I find that can be not like a true reflection of your game. This is what I like. This is you just play with stuff. It doesn't feel it's working, so you try something else, and you don't mind the risk of doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. What struck me about how you were rolling, how both of you in this sparring session, is how relaxed you were, Duncan. That you were. It's not like you were giving up position, but you were just staying very calm and sensitive, and I appreciate that very much. And when,
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll probably see that when he starts to try to take my back in a bit. Yeah, he does a quick pass there, straight onto knee on belly.
Yeah, so obviously the moment I passed, you wouldn't let me flatten you out, as a natural instinct, I guess. So that's why I had to then go around you, because you curled up straight away.
See that pass. Someone stepped in front of the camera right at that moment, but
yeah, I didn't have my grips here, so Mike was really good there and took advantage of me not having grips on him, and he's done a nice pass there. So straight away, I was trying to get the arm tucked in between my legs, because then he could have fished for the Kimura there. And then he's managed to get me flat. You can see my arms tucked away, and he's trying to get the collar. But I've managed to get up inside there to prevent the choke.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned about the choke, because I've done that move on quite a few people, because a lot of people, they automatically protect the neck, and also I tend to use that as an opportunity to tie their hands up as well with that tight collar tie-in, so that if they do feel uncomfortable and they then release their hand, then at least there's a potential choke coming on there as well. So, but otherwise, I tend to like to use that as a controlling mechanism.
This is very effective. I've never actually seen that before.
So basically, I've got my hand protecting the net, but Mike's actually wrapped my gi around my hand.
Yeah, luckily, but I'm not flexible enough to get there.
Now this is just terrific defense. You're so calm, and you're keeping yourself quite low, which means that Mike never really has a lot of control of you.
No.
He's actually forced to put himself back into half guard here, which is, it's a terrific thing what you've done. It's really, really well done.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back a bit there, sorry, if you can take that back a bit.
Yeah, sure. Further or here?
Yeah, so if you go back, so he's on my back here. That's right. Yeah. Yes, if you let that run. So yeah, he takes my back, and then I could feel he was trying to get my back. I was actually seeing if I could sort of turn into him, but I couldn't quite get the turn. So what I tried to do is I sort of grabbed that leg. You can see that I've tied his leg up with both my legs now. And I sort of pinched my legs together. And then I can try to draw him back round into a half guard. And if you just go back a touch there, literally a second or 2 seconds, you'll see my right hand is just cupped his left ankle.
Yeah.
So that was the key point for me, that I had that leg. Now I know I've got that leg. What I'm trying to do now is, when you play at that again, I've now got to get my left arm through. I'm trying to work it through. But he's doing really well defending here with his elbow. He's keeping his elbow tight. But I'm trying to work that round. And then, so I've gone low instead. So I've now got his leg and his hip.
Beautiful, yeah.
Beautiful. I mean, sweep right into side control. It's just lovely stuff.
Yeah. And that was what I was talking about in terms of Duncan's half guard. Really, really solid. Yeah. And I was trying to prevent. I knew the threat, and that's why I kept my elbow tight, so that I don't want him to do a deep half on me. Yeah. But then completely forgot about his other hand that was actually holding onto my leg to sweep. So.
And it was funny because quite a lot of the time I will make the mistake of lying there for too long and trying to establish a good grip, by which point they flatten me out. But I think with that sweep, I've just taken advantage of the quick sort of shift, and it's actually worked out okay for me.
And it's not unlike the, I think what Eddie Bravo calls the old school, right? Except he does it with a lockdown on the leg. But it's that same thing of scooping underneath the far leg, bringing your top hand over top to reinforce it, and then pulling.
Yeah, so
exactly.
So you can just see there, I'm just grabbing his foot, and then I can just bring his feet through together at the same time. The key for me was getting his feet and his legs pinched together, because then he hasn't got any base.
Yeah. No, it's really good stuff. And then once again, you're not a particularly large person, Duncan. It's hard truth time, unfortunately.
I'm only about 68, 69 kilos. Probably normally fight around 70.
Yeah. So you and I are actually pretty much the same size. I fight at 64. So I understand what it means to play bottom half guard. It can be quite a vulnerable position, especially for a smaller person.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
But you have mastered that ability of staying close. You know, I think a lot of people, the mistake they make in bottom half guard is that they think they need to create distance with their head. So if you rewind it a little bit back to the half guard position that he was in. So Duncan does this. Yeah, he turns Mike over into half guard. It's great. He locks it up, and now immediately Duncan drives his head in as close as he can. He doesn't create distance with his upper body. Look, he's really tucking that in. He's preventing a crossface as best he can, and then he's actually keeping himself in deep. And if you just pause it there for me. So I think beginners, people say, white blue belts, when they get into bottom half guard, especially if they're smaller, they push their heads away. They try and they create distance in that position, which permits the person on the top it permits them all kinds of mobility and the ability to crossface and to get underhooks. But here, Duncan just removes all of that by staying as close as possible, pinching nice and hard on that leg. I've got that.
I've got that left hand over there, so I've got that far leg now, and I also have my right hand on his other leg. So I'm trying to bring those legs together, and because he's got a grip inside, he's only able to post on the one hand because he's attacking the. I think he might be attacking the neck, so he can only post, and it's almost like a waiting game. You're trying to wait for them to get a little bit frustrated. They start to drive more pressure into you, to try to flatten you out, and then when you feel that bit of pressure, you switch the hips.
And you could even create more pressure by trying to turn up onto your knees to dogfight, and it creates that force feedback from your opponent to try and push you back down, and then over you go.
Because it was funny, because then we ended up sort of back up in the same sort of position again that we did at the start.
And look, he's going for that lasso right away, and I've sparred with Mike hundreds of times, and I know how good his lasso is. It's just so good.
It's a horrible grip, and even with years of judo, it's such a difficult grip to break.
This position here again, Duncan, you and I quite similar size people. I really like this, what you're doing. You're keeping yourself, putting a lot of pressure down. We don't have the ability to stand up tall. Because in doing that, we're going to have to keep our head low, and that can open ourselves up to triangles and the like. So you're staying really nice and low and driving on your toes. This, again, is something I try and teach students a lot, is this staying on your toes. And this, especially for a smaller person, is what permits you to both create pressure, but still stay mobile enough to move side to side if you need to.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. We're only between sort of 65 to 68 kilos, but if you use that in the right place, that is still a lot of weight on someone's leg or on someone's hip. It's just about trying to, use it. And I'll try to use it through my chest if I can. So like I say, driving my hips forward, trying to put the pressure on my chest, rather than trying to just use my arms and try to use my strength.
Yeah.
I mean, I only just found out, from you today, Duncan, that you're about 68 to 70 kilos. Like you say, you feel a lot stronger and a lot, heavier when I am sparring.
What are you, Michael? Just out of interest.
I walk around 76, 77.
Right.
Yeah, so, yeah. But then, for competitions, I then sort of go down to 74. Because I fight at lightweight, which is up to 76 with a gi.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I quite sort of agree with what you said there, Gregory, about it's a bit of a vulnerable guard for someone that's smaller. And I found when I first started BJJ, I'd be in that position quite a lot, whether through my own plan or just by sheer fault. I just end up on my back, getting flattened out. And I think, over the years, you just learn just through grinding it out that you've got to get your head in, you've got to get tight, you've got to close down that space, because I'll just spend hours upon hours of someone just flat on my face.
Yeah. Especially, I think I like you. I end up in spider guard or lasso guard quite a lot, because my go-to pass in the first instance is going to be a Toreando pass, right? And when you're in Toreando, or you're grabbing those trousers, the very first defense the person's going to do is grab your sleeves and you look to get a lasso or something. So I end up in lasso guard all the time. And when you end up in a place all the time, you had better be good at defending it. Because if you're not, you're just, like you say, you're going to get flattened all the time. I also seem to manage to get myself into full close guard quite a lot too. And so, this is another position you just, by the time you get to purple belt or brown belt, you had better studied that position, top, full guard, close guard, and how to get out. Because if you don't, that's how you lose matches. Like Duncan, you were saying, in the competition circuit, it's a very common winning strategy to score a quick 2 points, either through a takedown or a sweep, and then get into close guard on the bottom and ride the rest of the match out.
Yeah, definitely.
Close guard on the bottom.
And to be honest, I don't think I'd even try to use half guards in a competition. I think I'd only use it if I had to, and I end up in that position. Because, like you said earlier, you're putting yourself in quite a vulnerable position, and one little mistake, and you might only have 3 to 4 minutes to recover. Yeah. Whereas there in the class, we've got 10, potentially 10 minutes more to play around and to get out of it. But I think if I was playing more tactically, you'd be looking for something which is probably a bit more boring, to be honest.
Yeah. This is why I'm a particular fan of a guy, Eduardo Telles, who he is somebody that I look at, and I look at his competitions, and I think it's such a non-standard approach to competing. He plays, the turtle guard, half guard, a lot of deep half and things like that. He's consistently putting himself by design into vulnerable positions, especially turtle, because he's so confident turtling that he'll put himself there and take advantage of people overcommitting themselves. It's really interesting to watch. You don't see a lot of people like Eduardo Telles in the competition circuit anymore.
Yeah, that almost reminds me like a wild animal. They play dead, don't they? And they let it come to them, and then they strike.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, now that we're talking about all this, I know we're placing a lot of emphasis on the half guard and so on, but yeah, Duncan, do you think it's fair that your style of half guard is pretty much credit to Mill Hill? Because I know Mill Hill, all you guys spend a lot of time, especially if I'm watching Yusuf fight, if I'm rolling Yusuf, you guys are all very tucked in and doing all your deep half guard stuff and fishing for legs, and then eventually end up with a lot of leg locks, and I think a lot of that is probably credit to Mill Hill, I think.
Yeah, like I say, I'm a judo black belt. I've been doing judo for 20 years, and I'd never seen a half guard in my life. I didn't even know what a half guard was. If I pulled that in a judo competition, I'd get some strange looks. And it wasn't until I went to Mill Hill, and like I say, early on, I would just end up in that position just because people were passing my guard. It wasn't I was choosing to be there. I would start in close guard because I thought that was the place to start, and then people were passing my guard, and I just hang on for dear life. So sort of half guard became my position a little bit by sort of default, because I just ended up being there all the time. So I had to work out, how can I turn this into my advantage? And then they've got some really great instructors there, and one of them, Ed, I can never pronounce his surname. He's going to kill me. Yes, that's it. He does a great sort of half guards foundation where he literally will pull it apart and talk about all the aspects of half guard, all the attacks off it, all the defense off it. You could literally do like a month just on half guard. And I really took to those classes, and to be honest, that's where most of my credit would have to go.
Yeah, Ed's a great teacher.
Certainly is.
Great guy. Yeah.
Great.
So just one last thing I wanted to add is that I think Ed came down and I think he took a seminar for us, right? In doing, was that to do with half guard as well? Did that actually start from?
No, I think that at least the one that I attended was pretty much exclusively inside sankaku, the saddle. Which now he showed quite a lot of entries from half guard, from quarter guard, but only when you're on the top. So only when you're seeking to get inside sankaku on your opponent. So your opponent pulls half guard or quarter guard, and you do a back step into a inside sankaku.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
But he did other entries to inside sankaku as well, but that was one of the main ones. So in a way, it was a half guard class, but only by virtue of the fact that it was used to teach the saddle. But it was a great seminar. Really loved it. Really loved it.
Yeah, really good. Yeah.
Terrific, guys. Well, this is coming up on probably 20 minutes, half an hour. So I think it's terrific. I could do this all day, every day, but I think people watching only have a certain amount of ability to pay attention to these things, and I think this has just been terrific. Any final thoughts, guys, on any of this?
Well, no. Sorry. All I want to say is that I think this is a really good format. I think that particular, in the amateur ranks, you learn so much by watching each other and those common mistakes that you make. It's all in good pulling apart someone like Roger Gracie's World Championship final fight or whatever, but you're not going to learn really anything from it because probably not the moves you're doing. So this is why I think this is a good format, because you're looking at guys that you're going to be competing with regularly, training with regularly, and sort of more to it really. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, that's brilliant. Look, Duncan, I think you hit the nail on the head. Let's face it, in the BJJ, the vast majority of people are white belts and blue belts. In fact, you could even say the majority of people are white belts. And white belts love to go onto YouTube and look at videos, and inevitably they're looking at videos of Roger Gracie or Marcelo Garcia or, these guys, and they're looking at breakdowns of their game. And it's useful, yes, but that, you don't, if you're learning how to play chess, you don't look at the grandmaster for inspiration. You should be looking to somebody who is 1 or 2 levels above you. And, blue, purple, brown, black belts all have something to show, but especially those mid-ranks, the guys like you've got 6 years experience, which is, it's nothing to sneeze at. It's a lot of time, many hundreds of hours you put on the mat. You guys are, I think, the absolute perfect for breaking things down and analyzing, because you have all the knowledge to be able to execute these things, but you have the awareness of these mistakes that you can put these things together. It's a lot easier for a white and blue belt to digest the information that you are giving as compared to a Roger Gracie. That's my opinion. It's easier for me too. It's easier for me too to watch you guys and listen and digest your information rather than, ultra competitive world champion black belts.
Yeah, I think it's because what we're doing now is it's quite realistic, and I think it's quite easy for people to relate to as well. And then I was just saying to you, Jeff, on Monday that I never thought about getting someone to film sparring sessions, and in the heat of the moment, when you're just sparring, you miss a lot of things until you actually go back and look at it and then really break it down. So this is really, really useful.
Yeah, it also helps that we're all amazingly good-looking people. It's easy to look at. Easier
Can't take
to look
my eyes off this group.
No.
Especially Yusuf's assets in the last video that we did. Thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us. This has been wonderful. And, as soon as we start sparring again, we'll get some more of these videos out. And hopefully, Duncan, we can visit you or you can visit us and we can do another one of these.
Oh, I'd love to. Oh, absolutely fantastic.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thanks a lot, guys.
See you all.
Thanks,
Thank you so much.
Yep. See you soon. Bye.
Take it easy.